Hello dear friends, the theme of our second lesson today is evening makeup with a color accent. For my model, which as you can see has very bright and expressive facial features, I chose a very bold, expressive, but at the same time very effective image that harmonizes as much as possible with her individual proportions. The first stage is cleansing the skin of the face with a special alcohol-free tonic. To soften the skin, I apply a primer based on hyaluronic acid to certain areas where there are elements of dryness. The next step is to apply a primer based on reflective particles, which creates the effect of radiance and glow of the skin from the inside. I apply it completely to all remaining areas of the face to create a slight masking effect and hide certain nuances locally located on the face. The primer has a rather thick, light texture. It must be carefully spread so that there are no white streaks on the face. But at the same time, it has a very powerful effect of evening out the skin tone and creates a truly glossy, radiant skin effect like from the cover of a magazine. You can distribute the primer with your fingers. You can also use a special brush. The finger is much more convenient because we feel how much product is needed for even distribution over the skin of the face. I spread the rest of the primer with a synthetic brush to create the most smooth and even coverage. Pay attention, the half of the face with the primer is more radiant and well-groomed than the half of the face without the primer. The next step is to apply a medium coverage foundation in ivory, which is great for the majority of clients during the off-season, when the skin is not too tanned, but at the same time not too white. This is an ideal tone that can be used both for yourself and for professional work. I already have one coat of primer, but to make my skin tone more flawless, I will be duplicating the foundation in certain areas and also stretching it in the transition area between the face and neck, so that there is optimal coverage and there is no transition between the foundation and unpainted areas of the face. Next, we will tint the décolleté area, however, this is already the final stage in our work. But first it is necessary to work out the transition zone between the face and neck. We do this with the help of a synthetic brush with such light pulling movements. On the rest of the face we have light patting movements, so that there are no streaks and marks from the brush. Be sure to pay attention to the fact that the tonal foundation must also be distributed behind the ear. If necessary, you can slightly protonate the aureole so that there is more uniform skin tone. On the outer and inner corner of the eye, we apply again such a masking dense concealer to make the transition between the area around the eyes and the rest of the face less noticeable. The concealer has a warm sandy shade. It is the shade that is needed to mask the color difference between individual zones. If the shade of the concealer is too light, we can have the effect of a highlighted bruise. That is, if we choose a too light concealer texture. We can achieve the opposite effect. We will not mask dark circles, but rather enhance them. Under the eyebrow, we work with a light shade modeling corrector to highlight the eyebrow and make the shading softer. An important step is the sequence of application of this product. We begin to apply it from the brow facture zone and smoothly move toward the inner corner. We shade the corrector on the fold of the moving eyelid while not sinking onto the moving eyelid itself. The borders of the fat corrector must be very softly blended into the skin so that no sharp stripes are visible. Otherwise, this stripe will be sealed and will be visible in the eye makeup. This will create a dirty feather effect. In this makeup, we will make a full-fledged cream correction using these two products, a cream sculptor and cream blush, which we will apply to separate areas and mix with each other to achieve the most expressive effect. Cream correction is necessary to enhance facial feathers and make makeup more statured. If this is an evening out, such makeup will always look very impressive. Also, this type of correction is used for photos and videos to make facial features more prominent. In everyday life, cream correction is not always appropriate because it looks quite rich and defaced. The first product I will apply is a creamy sculptor. It has a pleasant shade bronze with a slight shimmer, and it is necessary to create a primary relief. We apply it to the area where we have the cheekbone line. We start the application from the temporal zone, that is, we put such a light point and draw a straight line from it diagonally to the corner of the mouth. Then we slightly shade our product up with the stick itself. The next step is to blend the creamy corrector. To do this, you can use either a doe fiber or a classical synthetic brush. But the most important step is to make the shading as soft as possible, so our corrector needs to be feathered until it is almost invisible, leaving a slight shadow. This technique simply imitates the natural shadow that falls from our anatomical lines and gives the face certain expressive proportions. However, if this is a daytime makeup, then in bright daylight this correction will be noticeable. But with soft, warm evening lighting, the correction looks very natural. A fat corrector should gently enter the temporal zone as if it were a shadow coming from the hairline, and it is harmonious continuation of our cheekbones. All shading lines should go from the center and upwards. That is, we do not completely extinguish over the entire product distribution zone, but begin to blend with soft circular movements from the extreme border moving upwards. At the same time, the most important thing is pressure force. If you have the softest possible pressure force, the shading will be very smooth. If you press too hard on the brush, then there will be bend holes in the feathering and the correction will be very noticeable. The lower border is shaded with such light longitudinal movements from the marginal border that in the middle of applying the corrector remains uncovered. On the protruding area of the apples of the cheeks, we apply a small amount of cream blush, which has a very pleasant color pink tint and creates the effect of a natural light gentle blush, in perfect harmony with the cream corrector. The next step is to fix creamy textures with a modeling palette. We start with a highlighter on the protruding areas. Duplicate our creamy correction with a dry sculptor. With a small amount of the product, we work out the cheekbone area, the temporal area, and the hairline area along the forehead. The next step is to fix the remaining areas with the help of special rice powder. This is the area under the eyes, the wings of the nose, and area under the cheekbone. The next step is eyebrow shaping. In this case, my model is dark-haired, so I will mix two shades, light and dark, on different areas of the eyebrow. With a darker shade, I will draw the end and break line, and closer to the base of the eyebrow, I will go with a lighter shade to achieve a soft transition effect. To give the eyebrows a more natural and careless look, I will work out the base of the eyebrows with a special fixing mascara, comb the hairs up a little, but I will not comb them too much so that there is no artificial effect, but only slight negligence. We cover the lower eyelid with the neutral pigments to form the softest natural shadow. Apply more with a small brush and go down a centimeter. We apply the pigment from the center of the eyelid, gradually approaching the inner and outer corner. Thus, we increase the size of the eye, imitating a natural white light haze, which creates a shadow effect and optically enlarge the eye. We work on the fold of the moving eyelid with the same shade using a special barrel brush. So we make our eye more voluminous and open. When working on the fold area of the moving eyelid, it is very important that the movements are as soft as possible and the brush barely touches the skin. Of the eyelid, so that there are no spots in the shading. That is the softest sliding movements, and we connect the shading area on the outer corner, connect the lower and upper eyelids, pulling the shading beyond the eyebrow area. Thus we form an elongate shape of the eye, which is in the future will look very harmonious. This type of shading is optimal for any eyelid shape. The next step is to deepen the crease of the mobile eyelid with a darker satin shade using a barrel brush. I remind you that it is the barrel brush that is optimally designed for working with the crease of the moving eyelid. Since it has a rounded shape that perfectly repeats the crease area. We make out the fold with a straight-looking eye open to form a natural shadow without distributing the proportions of the eye. When we have a process of working with a fold with an open eye, we can form a zone of natural shadow as accurately as possible. If the eye is closed, we can lower the anatomical line down, and this will widen the proportions of the eye. So the makeup will no longer be harmonious in accordance with the proportions of the face. This is how the fold looks like, which we worked out. Additionally, it completely goes into the anatomical fossa. We bring the blackout almost in the inner corner, so the eye becomes more expressive. We deepen the lower eyelids with a darker matte shade for a more expressive effect. In eye makeup, it is very important to alternate satin and matte shades. Satin shades are used to make soft shading, and matte shades are used to add depth and expressiveness of color in makeup. This is a very important point because if you mix up the order of applying matte and satin shades, there will be no clear accent and makeup will look messy. Apply the shade as close to the lash line as possible. For moving eyelids, I choose creamy bronze shades. This shade is optimal for applying pigments with a golden undertone. They can be used for both daytime and evening makeup. The application of shadow starts from eyelash, growth zone, and smoothly moves up to crease of the moving eyelid. The amount of product on the inner corner should be less than on other areas of the eye. A very important step is to soft shading so that the shadows blend smoothly into the crease. The amount of product should be average. The largest amount of shadows should be concentrated in the area above the pupil. The coating density will be less on the inner and outer corners. On the center of the eyelid above the pupil, I will wear this golden pigment with my finger to create the main color accent. This makeup will use 3 types of pigment, stretching from light to dark to create the most soft and at the same time effective transition. We apply the pigment with the help of driving movements. It is evenly distributed over the eyelid and the effect of metallic sheen is created on the eyelid. It looks very expensive. In my work, I do not use eyeshadows palettes since the entire makeup technique is based on a combination of creamy textures in combination with pigments. This is very convenient and economical, as you don't have to buy a lot of palettes that you won't use later. You simply select the shades of pigments that you need and match them with the base shades of cream shadows, so you get the most functional product that you can work with for different types of makeup. On the inner corner of the eye, I will apply the white gold pigment, which will be very harmoniously combined with the previous pigment. So the pigments will gently blend into each other, creating a smooth and natural transition. We apply the second pigment going to the border of the first one. Do not be afraid to apply one pigment to another. They are perfectly combined with each other, forming a smooth transition. We also apply this pigment for inner corner of the lower eyelid, create a dotted bright accent. We also wear golden pigment on the lower eyelid under the eyelashes. And on the central part of the eye. I apply a burgundy brown pigment to the outer corner to soften the transition between the dark corner and the center of the eyelid. The movements with which we apply pigment should be soft. The most important thing is the sequence of application. We start applying the pigment from the lash line and move smoothly to crease of the mobile eyelid. For a more expressive effect, we will fill the outer corner of the eye with a pencil. Let's make a soft pencil substrate on which we will apply dark shadows. We begin to apply a pencil sketch from the outer corner on the eye, drawing a thin arrow and smoothly reaching the crease. Next, we work with lower eyelid. We work with the pencil on the outer corner of the lower eyelid, so we get such a cheek mark and shade it with a pencil itself. We shade the border of the outer corner with the help of such a soft brush. The direction of shading should be from the edge and toward the temple. We extinguish all the time in one direction so that the feathering border is as soft as possible and there are no gaps. We extinguish the lower eyelid from the outer corner towards the inner. We fix our pencil sketch with matte brown shadows along the edge line. In the center, we will add black shadows. We are now smoothing the border between the black pencil and our pigment on the center of the moving eyelid. The movements along the fold are repeated as in the previous version. When we selected the fold before applying the pigment. To blend the edge border, I will use these soft chocolate shades of a satin texture, which are the base shade for smoothing out various areas where you need to emphasize the intermediate shade. At the very end, we add depth with the help of dotted accents with black shadows. To do this, we take a smaller barrel brush, which helps to create a soft dotted accent and blend black shadows into the shading between the brown ones. The next step is to work out the lower mucosa with a black Kajal. We fill in the mucosa and interlace to give the look more depth and expressiveness. The final step in this eye makeup will be false eyelashes and a thin arrow along the ciliary row.